Good morning and welcome to yet another lovely day here on theocracy.com. Thank you so much for all those that have been watching our videos and sharing. May God bless you. Today we're going to be looking at the book of Matthew. For the month of July, we've been paying attention to the book of Matthew, trying to get ourselves acquainted with it and improve our knowledge of the scriptures. Today is the turn for us to look at Matthew chapter 24. And before we start, I just want to let you know something that we're doing. I was hoping that you were going to be able to comment as you go by and watch the videos, but a lot of you were not making comments. I was hoping we could make a book, an interactive review of the book of Matthew, an insightful, inspirational, and interactive review of the book of Matthew. But since you didn't make a lot of comments, you still have the chance for the remaining few verses. You can still do that. But we created a group of people from different spheres of life, and we were giving them each chapter a day. And they were giving us lovely, insightful reviews. And so it was so interactive by the end of the day. So when the book comes out, it's going to have all their comments. And of course, the video will be attached. I'm looking forward to it. And I will share it with you the moment the book is out. We're currently working on it. Now, for today's book of the Bible we're going to read, it's a very special book. It's a book with wonderful information. Undeniably an important information for this generation, much more at a time like this when everybody is so panicked by this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. Everybody's like, God, I've never seen this world. Like, I have to do a video. This was to me like a new whole world altogether. Everything was changing. But children of God need to understand timing and know how to not let things move them anyhow, but depend on the Lord that everything. Once you have Jesus, you don't need to worry about anything. Just keep your fire burning and keep your oil on. Where the master is, you will be there. That's the most important thing. So today we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 24. Before I do the reading, I just want us to define some things, that we're going to be stumbling into as we go by. So that when we see it, when I start saying it will not sound gibberish. It will sound like, well, you'll be familiar and we'll be able to go along together. What are the things I want to look at? I'll be stumbling into things that I believe are happening here. I'll be looking at a word like dual fulfillment. Okay, you won't see the word here, but I'm going to explain when we get there. Dual fulfillment of prophecy. Prophecies are proclamations, words, and description of things that are going to happen in the future by the prophets of God, renowned prophets of God. Now, I want you to know that one of the things about prophecy you must understand is that it could be dual fulfillment. It could be immediate and long-term fulfillments. So some of those prophecies we see do have dual fulfillment. You have an immediate fulfillment, maybe at the time when the children of Israel were there, and we're waiting for them to still come to pass. All right. So that's what you mean when we say dual fulfillment. Another thing I want us to try to understand, is abomination. What is the meaning of abomination? Now, abomination is an act, is a sinful act that has terrible consequence. It's something that is unheard of, something that is horrible, and usually the consequence can actually be death. Now, the Bible has mentioned abomination about 100 times, but some areas that give us a clue to abominable acts or things that are perceived as abomination are scripture like Leviticus. If you look at the book of Leviticus 18:22, we're going to see where sin like homosexuality, bestiality are abominable acts. They are terrible. They're not supposed to be mentioned. A man is not supposed to sleep with a man as if he's a womankind. Then also another thing that gives us also a clue of abominable act is in the book of Daniel. And the book of Daniel, in Daniel chapter 9, 26 to 27, it talks about idolatry, where you do not allow the worship of God. The temple is not allowed the daily sacrifices that are expected in the temple were not being done. It's said to be an abomination. Not just an abomination, it's an abominable act where you replace it with idols, and then you leave the normal sacrifice that's supposed to be given to God as abomination of desolation. So now we're going to, now you have these two. Let me start reading the passage, and then as we go along, we'll get better understanding of why I had to do this first. Now I start. I'm going to be pausing like I do from time to time and try to see if I can make, some input before we go on. Now, and Jesus went out from verse 1 and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, say, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and they shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Let me take a pause here. Like we normally do, we want to take play back the scenario in our mind's eye. Now I just see a situation where Jesus and the disciples were walking, and then they came maybe around the temple area, and the disciples were like, see how beautiful the temple is, because from what I gather, temple was quite a beauty. See how lovely. And he told them, don't get carried away by this thing. Don't look at it. Not one stone will be left upon another. The whole thing will be brought to ruin. Wow. So now they climbed up to the Mount of Olives, and they were sitting down there. And while they sat down, the disciples now said, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Now there are two schools of thoughts here. People feel that there were two questions, and some people believe there were three questions. Now let's look at the two schools of thought. Verse 3. Tell us, when shall these things be? Some people think that first question was referring to when will the temple be destroyed? One. And the second one says, what shall be the sign of thy coming? Second question. And of the end of the world? Third question. Now, the one professor, Dan Doriani of Yale Divinity School, feels that there are three questions. I think there are two questions. And why do I think there are two questions? I've just given you Dan Doriani's view, Professor Dan Doriani's view of Yale Divinity School. His view is that one was for because they asked the question, because he told them about the temple. So one was, when will the temple be destroyed? Then the other one, when will Jesus come? And he feels that Jesus didn't answer all. Okay. He feels that Jesus answered only two questions. Knowing my master and looking at the teaching on offense and offenders that I taught, that we shared earlier, I believe in Matthew chapter 18, I believe that Jesus takes time to give people the answers, and even more than they would have. So I believe that Jesus answered them. But nevertheless, where I could marry my opinion with that of Professor Yale is, I'm thinking that possibly there was a dual fulfillment of prophecy here. So that could marry our opinions, and agree that actually that maybe three questions were answered. But to say that he answered to no, I think he answered all of them. All right, that's the only difference we may have in opinion. Okay, now, so what was he telling them? He was telling them, first, take it that no man deceive you. Many will come in my name. Don't let anybody come and tell you that Christ is here. Don't let people deceive you. Don't let the fact that COVID-19 has just come and this is the end of the world. You need to follow the scriptures and be guided for you to understand that God is in control of everything, and you as a child of God, you as a daughter of Zion, a son of God, you cannot be taken unawares. What is in you is mighty and great, and is a seal of salvation. You cannot be taken unawares. You don't need to begin to run helter and skelter. Just be calm. So we see that nations have been rising against. We see earthquakes. We see so many things happening. All these things are happening. We should not be troubled. These are evidences that the end is coming. The end is near. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And that's all I just want us to take home. Let's not allow the sins of the world make our love for Jesus go cold. Your standpoint in terms of the end is that you should be ready whenever it is. Whenever Jesus comes, whenever the rapture takes place, that you should be ready. And that brings me to the other two questions. Now, the other two questions are talking about the coming of the Lord and, of course, the end of time. And we know that the end of time, when there will be the close of age, we talk about the coming of the Lord, we talk about the rapture, when the saints will join the Lord to be, in the air. And we're going to see these two things answered and displayed as we go by. Now, I want to pause and start looking at verse 15. It says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. Now there is a bracket. That's why I believe there was dual fulfillment there. It says, whoso readeth, let him understand. I believe it has a timing to it. I believe that if you say whosoever readeth, it means that varied people are reading it, because it's going to happen at various times. It's going to be fulfilled at various times. This is where Prof Dan was saying that it was looking like they were talking about the destruction of the temple. Why? Because in the time, what happened, we saw that there was also a fulfillment of those events. The destruction of the temple took place by the Roman soldiers in AD 70. And he was of the opinion that if you look at the things that followed, from there it says, then let him which be in Judea flee unto the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe to them that have. You see, you cannot be talking of a flight and running around if it was not talking about something that looks like a war event. I agree. It may be it most likely would be talking about the AD 70 event of the Roman soldiers. But I want to beg that, looking closely, Jesus has always been a figurative person. He talks in metaphors. And when you look at talking about the fact that if you're on the housetop, don't come down. If you're in, how many people stay on the housetop? Will you stay there and be fighting? No. It's telling you be prepared at all times. Be ready. This is not the time for you to begin to, if you are at the forefront of the things of God, it's not the time for you to begin to look back and begin to think that, yes, I can accumulate money, I can accumulate wealth. I think you should be at the forefront. You should continue to focus on the things of God. This is the time for you to make sure you are always ready, prepared for the flight. You are prepared, you are living right, you are walking righteously, you are working for God, you are doing the things of the kingdom, knowing that the master can come anytime. But there's a warning that says we should look. And it says, in verse 15, wherefore, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of, stand in the holy place. Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Now, I told you that abominable acts are things like homosexuality, bestiality. And you and I have seen in recent time how these things have been legalized. How these things now have become a norm of the society and is creeping in. Let us know that that's an abominable act. And let us be careful and watch. And do we not see that it is even creeping in some churches? These people are actually, some so-called priests are marrying them. And this is an abomination. To me, it is even trying to stand in the holy place. And we need to be careful that the end is near. This is not a time to relax and play church. This is not a time to begin to go and do this, go and do that, relax, go to your house. This is a time to be alert, believing God, and being ready, for Jesus might come anytime and you'll be taken away. Another thing that is talking about in terms of whoever read it, let him understand. Another thing that comes to my mind is a situation where the worship of God is being threatened. I'm a doctor, and I understand that you have to protect yourself from the COVID-19 and so many things. But you and I understand that when in the time of Daniel, and I think we should better look at it. In the time of Daniel, something happened. They were trying to say that people should not, they stopped the worship of God in the temple. In the book of Daniel, chapter 9, 26 to 27, look at it and read. They should stop the worship of God in the temple. And anything that will make the church of Jesus Christ not gather is not nice. It's not good to, it shouldn't be heard of. See, it is an abomination for the temple, for God not to receive his worship on a routine and a regular basis. It is an abomination. It was abhorred in the time of Daniel. It is still an abomination till today. So anytime you see these things start coming near you, please, it's a time. All I'm trying to say is that all these things are adding up. They're only adding up to make us understand that we don't have any more time. We should be looking and focused on God and godly things and things that will make for heaven. And the Bible went ahead and talked about all the things that shall happen. A good knowledge of eschatology will be best put in when you look at the book of Revelation. We're going to be trying to keep in context of Matthew chapter 24. But that's not to say that in your own private time you do not broaden your knowledge and check out what other people are saying. Now, so I believe, yes, that Professor Dan may be right. Yes, Jesus was talking about the flight when the Romans came and that part had been fulfilled. But I'm also saying that because of dual fulfillment, that we should also be looking and reading and understanding that things around us are changing. Now let's go further. And let me start reading from verse 24 or 23. It said, "Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, there is Christ, or there believe it not, for there shall arise false Christ and false prophet, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore if they say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in these secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man. And wheresoever the carcass is, there the eagles shall be gathered together." We cannot be taken unawares, you and I, children of the living God. Where the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered. Look, we automatically have something in us that will just make us resonate with the Lord. We will just find ourselves where the Lord is. When you don't need to be afraid. COVID is here. Don't be afraid. Is this the mark of the beast? There's so many things are going around. Don't be scared. One thing we do know is that the beast cannot be revealed until the church is taken away. And you should know that when the rapture will take place, as far as you're living for the Lord and you have the Spirit of God, he's not going to forget you, his own. He's not going to leave us. We don't need to begin to run around and begin to get scared. No. Don't let any news carry you around. All you do know is what you already know. From all events that are happening, all that is happening around us, the abominable acts, even trying to step into the church, all those abominable things around us shows that Jesus is coming soon. And all we need to do is to stay focused. Continue to live for him. It's not the time for you to go and start, adding too many extra weights. It's time to stay focused. It's time to begin to look. Whatever you are doing as you're going to work, your mind is, if Jesus comes, as I'm at work, let him take me. Just keep calm, because he's not about to leave his own behind. And then it's why am I saying that there are two events here? Why am I saying that? And I want to show you in just a minute. Don't go away. We'll continue soon after now. Back. Let me just go ahead and continue reading. Okay? Now, from verse 29, all right? Immediately after the tribulation of these days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the power of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the cloud of the heaven with power and great glory. This is a very remarkable event. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. Okay? Now let's stick a pin in 31 and let's just try and go further a little and see and make us understand that there are two things here, okay, that is being talked about, and we want to see whether we can separate them and understand them. Now let's go to 39. And knew not until the flood, from 38, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day of Noah. Until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, and one shall be taken, and the other left. And two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. One event, everybody will look and behold him is coming in his glory. One, a bit secretive. Two will be together. One will go. Two, people will just be picked randomly. The rapture. The time he's coming, and the end of time. The end of time was answered first, and we see it clearly. Look at from that verse 29 and 30. To 31 and 31. Then the other part of the rapture, where two women shall be grinding at the mill and one shall be taken. But one thing is common. The time no man knows. But that Jesus is going to come and he will rapture his saints. The timing nobody knows. Now some people are of the opinion, talking about the rapture before the great tribulation and after. Those are schools of thought. But when you talk of the end of age, and you look at it, and you see where Jesus was talking about tribulation and everything, you look at it from verse 16, 17, and talked about in verse 21, for then shall the great tribulation, it looks to me like the great tribulation seems to be going to take place towards the end. And so I want to believe, and I'm of the school of thought, that the rapture is going to be before it. Now, when the rapture takes place, some people will be left behind, and those are the people that will be looking to see him coming. Beholding him coming with his angels in glory and coming down. The ones left behind after the rapture. That means the events towards the end of age is stated earlier before the rapture. And if there's a place he emphasized the uncertainty of the timing more, is in the rapture. It says in verse 42, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have. This is an unexpected event. The rapture is the one that is going to take people unawares. The other one, the people from all the nations of the world will be watching and expecting him. But this one is going to come unexpected. Now, at the beginning, I was telling you that I was of the opinion that Jesus was answering two questions. And I agree that my brother, Professor Dan, of the Yale University, Yale Divinity School, is correct when he says yes, that he was also talking about the collapse of the temple. And why do I agree? I know that there could be dual fulfillment of prophecy. But we must clearly understand that the question that the disciples asked Jesus, he answered them. He gave them the preamble and the events that will unfold for them to know they should be on the alert. He took a step further to make them understand that the time is not in anybody's hand. That especially for the rapture, it's going to be an event that will take people unawares. He will come like a thief in the night. And that time we should be ready. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 25. And we're going to see that he didn't just, I told you the Bible is a continuum. The scriptures were not actually broken in chapters. You will see that there's a continuation of this particular chapter because Jesus went further to make people understand we need to be prepared. I hope you had a good time. It was not bad for me also. I enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure looking at the scripture. Let's keep it a date again tomorrow. Whatever it is, let's all be ready. Whenever he will come, let's be ready. But let's not be afraid, for where the carcass is, the eagle will be there. And the Lord will never forget his own. Have a wonderful day.